by Ambassador Deepak Vora, former diplomat on the broadcast, as well as security analyst Patikrit Payne, to get the latest from ground zero and decode the security paradigm, security and the diplomatic paradigm when it comes to Prime Minister Modi's India First agenda. Now, Ambassador Deepak Vora, I'll come to you first. Now, Prime Minister Modi has had this whirlwind tour, 65 hours, 3 nations, leveraging the India First agenda. In this new world order after the pandemic and with the backdrop of Russia's invasion of Ukraine, what advantages can India leverage when it is interacting with these European powers?
Thank you very much. Always a pleasure to be on the News 18 network, to learn from you and learn from the other wonderful people who either report or analyze what's happening. The coverage given to Prime Minister Modi's ongoing visit to Europe, sir, does not surprise me. There was a time when India was marginal in the European perception. Europe was the preferred destination. You might recall, you're probably too young, for post-independence India. The now 25 million strong global Indian diaspora has much to do with the new image of India. First immigrants, you might recall, sir, I don't think you probably, again, you were not born, were workers, cleaners, waiters, others at the bottom of the food chain. Today, they are professionals, doctors, scientists, engineers, managers, academics, highly regarded and at the top levels of several international companies. Wherever he goes, the Prime Minister seeks out people of Indian origin, interacts with them. They love this. Sir, I arrived in Paris in 1975 on my first overseas posting. Amazed to see the buildings, the roads, the metro, the supermarket, the opera, the cars, the affluence, the prices. I also saw racism and arrogance. The overwhelming impression of India, and this is important for the millions of people watching your program to be aware, the impression of India was of a poor, hungry, overpopulated, backward nation, while the Europe of the 1960s, 70s was back to what we call the Belle Epoque of the interwar years with American money under the Marshall Plan. So everybody and his grandmother from India wanted to visit Europe. It was called the continent. Indian students fought for admission to British and European universities. But things have changed. The wheel of history has changed. We don't look to Europe or to the West for help with every natural disaster we have. By the time of Y2K, the year 2000, we were an established IT superpower. Thousands of Indian experts went to Europe to reprogram their computers. Then our decision 2003 not to accept foreign aid. We forget. And this, I was at that time posted in Europe, totally altered the European view of India. 2004, thank you, but no thank you for the tsunami. We'll handle it ourselves. Respect for India burgeoned. Do you recall, sir, the Western financial crisis of 2007, 2008? We were the only major economy not to be impacted severely by this. And suddenly Europe sat up and said, "Ye kya ho raha hai India mein? How come India is weathering the storm better than all these big economies?" And then we saw Indian companies acquire major overseas assets, Jaguar, Land Rover, Zain Africa, etc., etc. The Chinese virus came. We did better than almost any major country. We gifted millions of vaccines to dozens of nations. So these are very, very important things our reputation has sought. So when you ask me this question about what I make of it, well, India has come home. Of course, they talked about Ukraine because Europe, as your colleague rightly mentioned, along with America, has done nothing except demonize Russia and its leader. We don't believe in this because vituperation and abuse leads to a hardening of attitudes, doesn't leave any scope for improvement. So what we are seeing today in this whirlwind tour, first, sir, the Nordic countries, all 5 of them, their leaders, meet the Indian Prime Minister. 50 years ago, one Nordic fellow would have said, "All you Asian chaps come and meet me." But here it's the Nordic fellows coming to meet our Prime Minister. They understand. Why? We are dealing with, the whole world has to deal with the virus, existential challenge. We have to stabilize the climate or we face extinction. We need economic recovery and we need to manage the new and critical technologies. This is where India is a leader. And I believe this visit has made it absolutely clear that after the China dream has faded, India is the natural partner of choice for Europe, sir.
Absolutely. Patikrit Payne, I want to take that point to you as Ambassador Vora is pointing out. The new world order after the pandemic and with the backdrop of the war in Ukraine, is this India first doctrine of the Modi government something the European powers have now been forced to recognize when it comes to making their strategic calculations?
Well, the India First campaign and the India First doctrine of Modi government has been there from 2014 onward, and the government has worked relentlessly to create the structural framework to make sure that India becomes one of the best destination for investment. For example, the corporate tax rates were reduced to 25%, which is almost at par with the best of countries in the European market or countries like Singapore. We have allowed 100% FDI in contract manufacturing. When it came to the COVID pandemic, two things became very important in the COVID. First is development of a resilient supply chain, and which was so very important, and one of the very few countries which not only survived through its sheer resilience and made sure that its companies rebound, but also, it has been one of the very few countries, that is India, which have shown incredible growth even after the pandemic. Its companies became far more stronger, and that is a reflection of the fact that we have emerged. For example, just after the COVID pandemic, our merchandise and software export together, services and merchandise export together, is today $670 billion. That is a humongous achievement. Our foreign direct investment stood at $74 billion. Our foreign exchange reserves stood at $600 billion plus. So these are achievements in addition to the fact that, as I had also mentioned it yesterday, that we are one of the very few countries which have administered free vaccines to, the number of vaccines which has been administered is 1.85 billion plus. And, we have also, as Ambassador Vora mentioned, given vaccines free of cost to so many other countries. Today, we are actually pledging to give what you call wheat, especially because there's a crisis, food grain crisis because of the Russia and Ukraine conflict. So India is a market today where the companies are interested, the countries are interested, not just to sell products, but to become equal stakeholders. That's very important. And that is something they have understood, that India provides the stability. But at the same time, what the government of the day has made it very clear that if you want to do business with India, if you want to deepen relationship with India, it has to happen on equal terms. It will not happen in the manner it used to happen in the past, where you used to dictate terms to us. And that is a fundamental shift that we are seeing. So today we are, a country which is dictating. I would not say we are dictating terms, but we know what we are dictating, what is good so far as Indian interests are concerned. Ambassador Vora very beautifully actually explained the transformation in terms of the perception that the Europeans had about India. But the most important thing is that we have survived, especially if you see across the spectrum of South Asia and many other countries which are faltering, finding it difficult to pay back loans, having balance of payment crisis, severe crisis of food. We have survived in spite of a lot of challenges. We are the only country which withstood both the onslaught of the COVID virus and the country which has been responsible for the COVID virus. We actually countered the challenge of China, and that is why the world, stood and actually took note of us, that we are not a country which is expansionist in nature. Absolutely. We are not talking about changing the fundamental world order. We believe in rules of international rule-based order. We believe in multilateralism, and at the same time, we are telling to the world that here, 1/5 of the global population, you have to hear our voice, because enough is enough.